is a bigger fish?
Hayden Christensen in this episode. Let's go. So exciting. I have a lot of things I want to say about this. We're going to get into it a little bit more in the video, but I just needed to exclaim. I just needed to shout to the heavens and say, wow. But before we get into it, let us recap this week's episode. So I know some people weren't on this journey with me before, but for those of you that just got here with this episode of AHSOKA, welcome. Welcome to the world between worlds. Thank you for joining us. All right, so the beginning of this episode starts off with Hera and her troops arriving to the planet's surface. They confront Hu Yang. Hu Yang says the thing that we were predicting last episode he was going to say, which is I told them not to split up. And they never listened to me. I'm sorry, Hu Yang. You were so right. And that, for me, that moment actually almost made me cry. I'm laughing now, but at the time I was like, oh, it's so sad. It's so true. Jason, while he's here, hears lightsabers. And it turns out he's right. He does hear lightsabers in the waves. And he basically sends out his mom to look for AHSOKA and Sabine because he can hear them fighting in the waves, and Hera can kind of sense that as well a little bit and seems to believe him, so out we go to look for AHSOKA and Sabine. So as the troops are flying around looking for them, they don't really know what they're looking for, but they're looking. Chopper working his little satellite dish. We go to the world between worlds where Anakin reveals he has to finish Ahsoka's training. But Ahsoka is not here for this, and she is basically like, no. I'm good. I don't need any more training from you, Anakin. I think I've had my quota of lessons from you. But Anakin says, nah, live or die. And then they start to fight. And in a very classic Anakin moment, actually, I would say, Ahsoka proves herself in the fight and at the end gets a little bit overconfident and is like, I guess you got nothing else to teach me. Haha, I'm good at fighting. And Anakin smashes through the bridge, which Ahsoka did not see coming, and she goes plummeting down below, landing into the Clone Wars. That's right, baby. We're getting live action Clone Wars in this. And wow, I did not realize. I mean, I knew how young Ahsoka was in the Clone Wars, but you don't really realize what that means until you see it in live action, I think, and also see it as an adult. And it gives you a lot of perspective where you go, yeah, that's pretty messed up. Ahsoka was a commander, I'll remind you, in the Clone Wars when she was just a kid. And yeah, I'm not surprised that she didn't want to be a Jedi anymore after going into this in live action. Seems terrible, to be honest. After reliving some of what her experience was like here with her first and then her last battle, which we see both of those, Anakin tries to show her how she evolved basically because of his teaching, saying like, basically, I don't remember this last battle. This was all you, and you became a warrior. Like, look at you. This is great. And then she decides to kind of turn it back on him, and she questions his teachings. And it seems throughout this, he's kind of trying to instill in her the importance of survival and how that's something that like he instilled in her as her master. But she calls him out for basically what he became and has to confront that if he becomes a monster, one, what does that say about her? And two, ultimately it makes her conflicted and she wants to reject all of his teachings. But if Ahsoka pulls out the dark side card, then Anakin cashes that in when he responds by pulling out a red lightsaber, becoming very much the version of Anakin that we knew near the end of the prequels as he's becoming Darth Vader. He turns pale in appearance, his demeanor completely changes. We have so much we need to talk about that. We're going to get to that in a second. They fight, and Ahsoka is forced to confront the dark side of Anakin and of herself. She ends up succeeding ultimately throughout that fight in understanding the lesson, and she is able to pass back into the world of the living, stronger than before. Finally understanding and accepting Anakin's teachings and acknowledging that it's basically our perception of teachings that colors them, and that there's no inherent good or evil, but only what we choose to be, which is what Anakin was trying to teach her. And also it's interesting that as she started to pull out the elements of the dark side that also exists within Anakin as Darth Vader, he turned dark. So it really does reflect that in a lot of ways in that whole part of the story. It's so well done. It's so cool. After being found by Hera's troops, Ahsoka rests. Well, Hera basically has to deal with her being in a lot of trouble. Her and Carson and the rest of the troops that survived, they are in trouble. And it turns out the New Republic is sending reinforcements to come call them back in, since they're on an unsanctioned mission. Ahsoka has to figure out how to find Sabine. So they don't have the map. It wasn't burned into her hand like so many of us were thinking it might be. Instead, she has to basically use memory imprints. She realizes that Sabine went with Baylan, and then she looks up and she gets an idea. Carson is tasked with creating a distraction while Hera and Ahsoka try to figure out how to find Sabine. And Ahsoka's plan is basically to go talk to some space whales, which she kind of does. It's pretty great, to be honest. I loved that so much. And the space whale agrees to give them a ride. Her and Huyang go inside of one of the space whales in its mouth to hopefully find Sabine and Ezra and Thrawn. And for us, hopefully, more Baylan Skoll, because not enough Baylan in this episode, which moves me on to what I thought of this episode. So let's talk about that really quickly. So yeah, I loved this episode. I thought it was amazing. This is like a 10 out of 10 for me. This episode was everything I wanted it to be, and honestly, maybe more. It might be an 11 out of 10, to be honest. The only thing that it was missing, the reason I can't give it an 11 out of 10, is the lack of Baylan Skoll, because so good, such a great character, and I'm excited to see more in the next episode. More Ray Stevenson. Guys, we need to go back and watch Rome. I need to watch Rome, and then I need to tell you all about it here on the channel. If you are down for this and you want to hear about where I first fell in love with Ray Stevenson, let me know in the comments, because I'd love to take you back on that journey with me. The whole theme of the show, I think the reason why this episode is so great is because the whole theme is summed up really beautifully in this episode, which is this idea of closing chapters and sort of resolving the unresolved, confronting our past, confronting our legacy. That's all embodied beautifully in this show, and I think it's perfect for the pacing. Like, the show's pacing has been pretty flawless for me. This is us moving into the third act of the show, and we've basically summed up what the whole point of the show is. That's the theme of it. And now that we've acknowledged that, it allows us to move into where that theme can take us next, the evolution of the theme, which is more sort of pointing out how it affects other areas of the world. So we'll probably see what resolving things gets us, I'm assuming, in this third act. I'm really excited to see that. Some other things I wanted to acknowledge is that I have a theory that I think Chopper is seeking to become a Sith Lord. I think that he was trying to also reach into the Force. I know droids can't reach into the Force, although I do think that would make a great fanfic, and I might have to write that. The droid that was Force sensitive. That could be cute. But I will say, I loved how when, like, Jace was, like, you know, hearing the fight in the waves through the Force, how just Chopper has his little satellite going, and in my head canon, I was like, Chopper's trying to, like, sense the Force. He's trying to be like, could I be Force sensitive? I could use this to think of I could rule. I could be the ruler of the Empire. I'm kind of kidding, but I'm also kind of not, to be honest. But let's talk about some of these characters. So first of all, Carson definitely deserves a raise. Carson is just all over the galaxy doing all sorts of things. I'm pretty sure he's the only pilot we really have at this point for the New Republic. He's the one that we keep seeing. And here he literally has to put himself on the line for General Syndulla, which he is following orders, but what a tough spot to be in, to like have to stall and basically talk back to your own forces and tell them you're not going to do what they say. Like, oh, man. Man, I love Carson. He's so good. But really, what we came here to talk about Hayden Christensen. So, I have a little something to say about this. One, I want to say that Hayden Christensen is an amazing actor, and I've always known that from other things that I've seen Hayden Christensen in, but also because although I acknowledge the prequels are not good, I'm not saying that they're good, but the acting was not the problem that I had with the prequels. To be honest, I think that cast is super stacked, Hayden Christensen included. And I think this show is really going to allow people to see what he's capable of as an actor and gain him a lot more respect, which I'm so excited for, especially among the Star Wars community. And I just want to say to those of you that watched the prequels that had beef with Hayden Christensen and thought that he wasn't a good actor and that was the problem, you were wrong. And I want to say welcome to the fan club for Hayden Christensen. You're still welcome, but I just want to acknowledge there's going to be so many people now being like, that was so good, that was amazing, that before were like saying how terrible everyone was in those movies. And yeah, I don't think the acting was really the main issue I had there. And as we're talking about sort of Hayden Christensen moving back and forth between those two personas, and also saying, you know, you're never too old to learn, which is like definitely a Yoda-ism. I just wanted to point out that this exists. This is Star Wars Yoda. It's a comic series that's set in the world, obviously, of Star Wars. It's all canon, and this sounds like it's like an ad read or a sponsor. It is not. I wish. Marvel, if you're watching this, Lucasfilm, if you're watching this and you would like to sponsor me to talk about your comics, I would do that for you. I love these comics. I just want to mention 7, 8, and 9 are 3 issues that is one story with Yoda and Anakin going on a mission together, and it is great. And if you haven't read that, I would recommend checking it out. It's got a lot of moments that, I don't know, really reminded me of this episode when I was watching it. I was like, this is just like that story, and just some really good Yoda and Anakin moments. It's nice when you get to see masters sort of brought back through their students. Actually, case in point, at the end of this episode, AHSOKA is talking to Huyang as they're flying away inside the whale, and Huyang's like, oh, so you had the conversation and you know where we're going? And she's like, nope. I don't know anything. I'm just hoping we're going to the right place. I do not know what just happened. We didn't have a conversation. I can't understand what that whale's saying, but we're gonna go. It just was very, both Anakin and Qui-Gon Jinn is what I got from that, and yeah.
There's always a bigger fish.
AHSOKA did what some of us were thinking she was going to do. She went in Gandalf the Grey, and she came out. She came out of the world between worlds Gandalf the White. Which I love. I feel like she's super chill, like even more chill than she was before, and she was pretty chill before. Oh, also speaking of AHSOKA, her badass moment this episode, I think I'm gonna give it to Kid AHSOKA, actually. Being a kid commander is like insane, especially when you see it in this context. Like seeing it as an adult watching it, seeing it not animated, seeing a real kid do that stuff and have to command these people and deal with the loss of war is disturbing. And wow. The action in this show is also continuing to be fantastic. I mean, really one of my favorite things though is watching Hayden Christensen seamlessly do that lightsaber battle, going back and forth between styles as we're kind of seeing the light side and the dark sides of that character. Anakin, Darth Vader, both of those residing within one person, and how easily he switches between the demeanors of the character. Like, also, I don't know what it's from, but you lack conviction. I want to say it's a Star Wars line, but I can't find it anywhere, and it's driving me insane. So if you know what you lack conviction is from in Star Wars, please let us know, because I need to know. It's gonna haunt my nightmares. So yeah, is it from something, or am I crazy? I'm pretty sure it's from something. Don't know if it was said to Anakin, or if he said it, or if it's from Clone Wars or what, but pretty sure it's somewhere. I also have a quick little theory about the reason that Jace actually came with Hera. So I think Jason came with Hera because Hera knew that this was an unsanctioned mission and she didn't want to leave him behind in case things went weird and the New Republic. I think she just ultimately didn't trust the New Republic because they weren't listening. to her, and she didn't know what would happen if she left Jason there, went and did this mission, and if maybe they would, I don't know, like use him as a hostage, basically. Obviously, I wouldn't think that the New Republic would do that, but also when you say to someone, like, I'm pretty sure the Empire's coming back, and they kind of ignore you, I can understand why you might make that move. Also, obviously, Jason was super useful here, so I feel like bringing someone that's Force sensitive with you is a good idea, especially if you feel capable in keeping them safe, and if you have Chopper with you, who, goodness knows, I'm sure he could keep everyone safe in this with his track record. Well, friends, that's what I thought of the episode. Like I said, I loved it. I gotta give it a 10 out of 10. It really was great. The only thing it was lacking was Baylan Skull, and if it had that, it would be an 11 out of 10. I can't wait till the next episode. I have nothing else to say other than may the Force be with you. Stay nerdy, friends.